Because right now we're watching Bella get ready to marry her disco ball of a Redditor boyfriend and give up her life for him.
Take it back, take it back, take it back.
Hi guys, welcome back to my series where I'm recapping all the Twilight movies from beginning to end and giving you my unwarranted movie opinions. And today I will be recapping Twilight Eclipse. This movie is foul. The things that Jacob does to Bella is despicable and diabolical, and we need a priest in that writer's room because what the dude? This is the third installment of my Twilight movie recap series, and if you haven't gone and watched the first two, please go and watch them. They're pretty good, and I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so while you're at it, could you just subscribe? Because I'm looking for people to join my cult, and I really need you to be a part of this journey with me.
I like these hats.
Good.
And I love freedom. And girls in trucks and beer.
That's right.
Do you squirt?
Do I what?
Do you squirt?
Squirt.
Anyways, this movie enhances the challenges vibes of the previous movies, but to a really insane extent. The vibes between Bella, Edward, and Jacob is turning a little bit scary, and I'm starting to see a little bit of a throuple appear. So without further ado, here's my Twilight Eclipse movie recap. Picture this: an unidentified white boy stumbling around the streets of Seattle, much like Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello on their COVID pap walk. That is what is happening on screen right now. We're seeing a random white boy of the month, maybe of the year potentially, stumbling around the streets of Seattle, all alone in the middle of the night. But while walking around this Blade Runner-esque city, this little white boy gets pushed over by some random hooded figure, much like Sue Sylvester pushing an elderly man down the stairs. But this hooded figure persists and eventually gets pushed down to the floor, where the hooded figure then bites him and turns him into a vampire. So we're just turning everyone into vampires right now? I'm looking over at you, Edward Pattinson, and your religious ass. Just turn Bella. Anyways, we return back to the normally scheduled Bella monologue at the beginning of the movie, where she is actually reading out a passage from her English homework. Yes, just a reminder, this girl is still in high school, and she is dating a man who has Debussy on his Spotify Wrapped. We then find out that Edward and Bella are actually hanging out in their little prairie, and Edward pops the question of marry me once again. So I guess they didn't marry in the last movie, so Bella started on business and she rejected him. And she rejects him again because she doesn't believe in the institution of marriage, considering her parents have divorced. Cut to Bella's father, who isn't too happy about her still dating her trad boyfriend Edward, and he actually elaborates that he grounded her not because of the impromptu vacations, but he grounded her because he was too worried that she was spending too much time with her Redditor boyfriend Edward.
I am become meme. Yeah, pretty much.
And to encourage the social growth, he's like, hey, Bella, you could hang out with your new friends and I'm gonna unground you as long as those friends don't include Edward. Which is like, okay, whatever. But then he decides he's going to actually push his Jella agenda and is like, hey, but Bella, you should actually hang out with that little boy Jacob because he's a good man and he's currently in his sad boy emo era and he needs you. And I'm kind of here for it. I am kind of here for it. Like, is that a crime? Is that a crime to want Jacob and Bella together instead of Bella and Edward?
Step, bump, step, bump, bump, step, bump, step, bump, bump.
And so Bella decides she's gonna get ready for a midnight drive over to Jacob's house when all of a sudden she gets carjacked by her boyfriend Edward, who's like, hey, I've been watching you by way of Alice's future sight and I don't want you to go to Jacob's house because 1, werewolves are ugly, 2, I'm racist, and 3, they cannot control themselves. Which is like, okay, sir, that's rich coming from you. Coming from the family that goes full yellow jackets on Bella whenever her period enters the chat.
My daughter still goes, Mommy, can we go on our plane again? And I'm like, baby, there's no plane.
Yeah. We then cut to Bella eating lunch at the human table with Edward and his incestual siblings at his side, when all of a sudden Alice is like, hey guys, we should maybe throw a graduation party at the house because that would be great, which the Cullens immediately shoot down because they're like, do you remember what happened the last time we tried to throw a party? Yeah, we almost turned it into a mukbang on Bella's Flash. Imagine a full school of high schoolers inside our home. Oh, it's gonna be Slaughterhouse 5.
Do you know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby!
So the party's immediately canceled. Okay. Moving on, we watch Bella and Edward stalk her father at the police department when we find out that there has been a string of murders in the Seattle area. Yes, there's something suspicious happening in Seattle, and Edward's like, yeah, we've been tracking that, and that might be a bunch of vampires popping up, so we're gonna keep our eyes peeled, because if it gets any more serious, the Volturi may actually step in, and because Forks is a hop, skip, and a jump away from Seattle, they will most definitely see if you're a vampire. And that could turn into a big problem. Also, throughout this movie, we see the vampires in clear sunlight, and they're not glowing, which is a clear contradiction to the previous movies in the world building of Twilight. And then out of nowhere, Edward's like, hey, I bought 2 plane tickets for me and Bella to actually go to Jacksonville, Florida to see her mother one last time before graduation, which is like, okay, I see what you're doing, Edward. Graduating from human to heroin chic vampire look. I get it. But Bella, you're being scammed. This is a Temu scam, and you're going to become the Temu of all vampires. Bella, is it really worth it to give up your familial connections just so you can be with your Redditor boyfriend? I don't think that's worth it. Anyways, cut to Florida, where we get to see Bella and Edward and her mother in Jacksonville, Florida. And even her mother is very confused about her relationship with Edward. She's like, dude, that man he's attached to, he is humping your leg all day long. That's freaky. Because the behavior that he is exhibiting, that's killer behavior.
I've been aware of the killer since birth.
Also, when they mentioned that they went to Florida, I was like, oh, word, like we're in Jacksonville, Florida right now. I got super excited. Maybe Jacksonville is getting its movie star clout. And then I look it up and I'm like, oh, they filmed this in Canada. This is Canada? Okay, yeah. Because that looks like Canada, right? Just a little bit disappointing. I wanted my hometown to finally get some credibility. And then Bella's mother brings out a gift and is like, hey, Bella, this is for your graduation. I really hope you enjoy this. And then Bella gets so emotional over this. She starts breaking down. Not even breaking down, it's breaking down. And she's freaking out. And her mom's like, oh, okay. Didn't expect this for a graduation gift. It's literally just a blanket. Which is like, okay, Bella, if you are freaking out this much over having to leave your mother just to become a vampire, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's not worth it at all. Maybe it's worth it to stay human and just get dementia-ridden. Maybe you were meant to become a dementia-ridden hag with a teen boy side piece. Maybe that is your path, Bella. Cuts to the Cullen family waiting in the middle of the woods for something. We don't really know. Maybe it's a group sex thing. Maybe they're waiting on their dealer to show up. And then all of a sudden, their dealer does show up. It's the Ginger. She's running right through the woods and she's being chased by the Cullens and the werewolves because she is running on the border of the werewolf and vampire line. And then she escapes. Oh, if she can escape, just let her live. Maybe she deserves to live, okay, at that, because it clearly means that you guys are not capable of doing your job and taking her out. Also, they changed the Ginger actress to the Bryce Dallas Howard. How did you expect us not to notice this? Because clearly they are 2 different people. The only thing that's doing the heavy lifting is the Ginger wig. And trust and believe, that Ginger wig is not doing heavy lifting. That Party City Merida wig isn't doing the numbers that they think it is, because I can clearly see that's a different girl. And once back in Forks, Bella is still dead focused on becoming a vampire, even though she just had that depression trip to Jacksonville where she's clearly not happy about losing her family, but whatever, I guess, like, blood is not thicker than cum. And to add on to that, Jacob interrupts and is like, hey, Edward, why were the vampires in werewolf territory? Why are you guys in my realm? Also, Bella, just to let you know, the Ginger is actually still thirsty for your blood and she's currently looking for your body. So watch out for that. Glad to know that they're keeping you in the dark. And Bella's pissed about this because she's like, why did you lie about this to me, Edward?
Friends don't lie.
Why did you refuse to tell me the truth and tell me that the Gingy still wants me in my cookie?
I'm like, bitch, that's my cookie. That's my juice.
Bella decides that she's going to once again cuck Edward and get onto the back of Jacob's murder bike and go to the alpha male compound. Bella then arrives at the alpha male compound, and for some reason all the werewolves love her, even though she's been emotionally destroying Jacob from the beginning of the first movie, which is like, okay, little bit confused why we like Bella. But there is one sane individual, and that is Leah, and in fact, she is the first female werewolf. Yes, feminism has reached the werewolf community. Leader of the pack has actually imprinted on his girlfriend Emily, which imprinting is basically saying that you are going to love them forever, like till death do us part kind of vibe. So it's kind of a love at first sight kind of vibe. I think we need to do a Love is Blind but with werewolves, and they need to just start imprinting on everyone on the show. I think that would be interesting. Also, I discovered that Leah is unable to imprint on anyone, which is looked down upon by the elders of the tribe, and they call her a genetic freak, which is like, what the fuck? All because she cannot hard launch a baby into this world, which sounds weird because I'm like, okay guys, I'm kind of done with this book's flirtations with pro-life, because what do you mean she's a genetic freak because she can't find a life partner, thus creating a baby for the tribe. Also, Jacob hints that he's imprinted on Bella, but he doesn't really release that as canon evidence as of this moment, but it's definitely inferred. But to stop Jacob from being too in love with her, Bella reveals that she's actually being turned into a vampire after graduation, which is in like a month, and Jacob crashes out. Son of a... Jacob's like, what are you talking about? I would rather you be dead than be one of them. Oh, sir, that was a lot. We then cut to the white boy at the beginning of the movie, curving around Bella's room, most definitely guessing the color of her underwear, which is like,
You wanna guess the color of my underwear?
sir, get out of that teen girl's room. I don't, what the This is then interrupted by Bella walking into the home, and she sees no vampire. In fact, there's only one vampire, and that's at the front door of her home. That is Edward, and he is looking extra coked out because he's like, hey, there was a vampire recently at your home, and you will be coming back to the Cullen home with me where you will be safe. And Bella agrees, and she leaves her father in the home where the vampire was just at. And once at the Cullen home, we find out the vampires stalking Bella are actually not Volturi certified. In fact, they're just with the Ginger. So they're kind of just a group of chaos agents, which is cute. Kind of, like, honestly, like, cause anarchy. Do your thing. As long as you don't mess with my teen romance. And due to there being too many evil beings afoot and the Cullens fighting way too many battles, they decide to have Bella protected by Jacob. I love the way that Stephenie Meyer decides to thrust Jacob into every little part of the plot, because there is no reason for Bella to be protected by Jacob alone. She could easily just live on the compound and not have to be around Jacob 24/7. Her father is also a cop, so just like, clearly she's got all the protection she needs. She's probably better protected than the FBI. And to get back at Jacob for having certified alone time with Bella, Edward decides to make out with Bella. And not like a normal makeout. He does like full-on tongue aerobics with this girl. Like, this is Olympics level athleticism happening inside of their mouths. It is disgusting. And then Jacob just accepts these sloppy seconds and is like, hey, beautiful. Which is honorable, but it's like, dude, you're just gonna take it? You're just gonna take it from the back like that now? And now I'm gonna sound like a broken record for gay cinema, but this is giving Challengers, but for angsty Tumblr teens. Like, this is...
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, this is fruity. And then Jacob brings Bella to a tribe history meeting. Like, she's gonna hear the history of the tribe, and she's one of the first outsiders to ever do so. Which is like, is this girl really that unique? Like, I know she's cool, and you have a crush on her, and you've low-key imprinted on her, but like, she's literally sleeping with the enemy. Like, she is sleeping with the enemy, and you're just gonna reveal tribe secrets to her? But anyways, they move forward with leaking this history to Bella, just like those filthy gays leaked XCX World to the entirety of humanity. And the history of the tribe is overall quite simple. Like, they landed in Forks a while ago, they've been living there forever, and then the vampires randomly showed up, and they've been fighting the vampires for a couple hundred years. We then transition back to the Cullen family, where they're actually considering going back to Seattle to then kill all the vampires that are being created in the city of Seattle. When Edward brings up the idea that maybe the Volturi are actually behind this entire situation, and that Aro, the ringleader, has actually been considering bringing Edward and Alice into the Volturi because he thinks that they would be a great asset to the Volturi because of Edward's mind-reading powers and Alice's future sight. But he does know that the two of them would only leave the Cullen family if the entire Cullen family is murdered. So they're thinking that maybe the Volturi are creating an army to then kill everyone in the Cullen house except from Alice and Edward, so they would join the Volturi. Also, we find out that the white boy from the beginning of the movie guessing the color of Bella's underwear is actually from Forks, and his name is Riley Beers. Alice also announces that she has planned a graduation party and that Jacob is invited, even though the party should have been canceled because it's probably going to be turning into a bloodbath / mukbang for vampires. And after this gracious invitation from Alice, Jacob confesses his love to Bella and is like, hey, Bella, I love you. And Bella's like, okay, I get that, but I don't love you. And Jacob's like, no, you do love me. Which is like, okay, sir, I'm gonna have you pause right there. How the you know what she's thinking? How would you know that? How would you know that? Because that sounds really, really confusing. And then he puts her in a headlock, Imogen Heap style.
And I put you in a headlock. You ain't like that one, did you?
And then he locks her lips in the prison that is his mouth. And then she, rightfully so, gets pissed off at this and then punches him in the face, which then breaks her hand. And after this altercation, Jacob drives Bella home, where then Edward is there to fight for Bella's honor, so a fight starts happening. And then just before this World Star fight starts debuting to the world, Bella's father comes in and breaks up the fight, so... We didn't even get to see a proper fight. This is stupid. And once the fight is broken up, Bella is then driven to the Cullen home where she finally gets to set the record straight with the mean lesbian of the house, and that is Rosalie. Yes, we get to see the enemy's true lovers between Bella and Rosalie begin to develop. And yes, I know I probably sound like a QAnon conspiracy theorist talking about all these lesbian ships that I have, but I do believe in this. I do believe in lesbianism in all forms. And I think the lesbianism in the Alice x Bella form is true. And I think the lesbianism in Bella x Rosalie form is very true. So let's talk about it. And here Rosalie tells Bella that she doesn't actually hate Bella. She just doesn't like the fact that Bella gets to choose between being a human and a vampire, and that Bella is choosing to become a vampire. And honestly, Rosalie is speaking facts, because everything that we've seen about the vampiric turning process, from just the actual physical process of it and the concept of having to leave your entire life behind, kind of sucks. And then we finally get to hear the Rosalie lore, and we find out that she was once an upper class woman in Rochester, New York, when she was out in the middle of the street with her husband, who then assaulted her and left her for dead in the streets, basically. And then Carlisle comes up and he turns her into a vampire to save her from dying, which that is a tragic backstory if you're going to say anything. Like, truly, this girl's been screwed over by everyone. And then on top of that, when she becomes a vampire, she gets to kill all of the men that watched and then kill her husband.
Got my revenge on them. One at a time.
Honestly, if we could just get a movie about that, if we could get a prequel just about Rosalie's life, I think that would immediately solo all the Twilight movies. I think that movie could actually be really good. And I don't understand how Stephenie Meyer wrote that and was like, yeah, let's just like keep her as a side character. And this insane story is interrupted by the evil white boy vampire throwing a temper tantrum because his vampires won't actually stop causing chaos.
What did I say about a low profile?
I mean, what did you think was going to happen, sir? You turned a bunch of innocent people into vampires and never taught them how to be vampires, so they're gonna not know how to be vampires. Which is like, Diva, you thought you were being slick before? Like, trust and believe, the Volturi are already in Seattle. In fact, Dakota Fanning is sitting on a parking garage staring at you right now. Dakota then reveals that she will be dealing with the situation because Aro's future is already being watched by Alice, which means that Aro can't really make any decisions. So therefore, Dakota is going to make the decision, and that decision is to let the vampires do whatever they want. And then the movie throws a hard curveball, and then we watch Anna Kendrick do her graduation speech. And she makes the statement,
"This isn't the time to make hard and fast decisions. This is the time to make mistakes."
Which is like, wow, you writers are sick and twisted for writing that. Because right now we're watching Bella get ready to marry her disco ball of a Redditor boyfriend and give up her life for him. But before we can get too sad about Bella choosing this Nara Smith Mormon lifestyle, we actually get to see Alice's graduation party. And it is a vibe until Jacob shows up and he crashes the party, and it's a bit awkward. We're all like, okay. When Alice has a vision that the vampires are playing sniff and pass with Bella's underwear, and they're getting ready to head over to Forks, Washington in 3 days. Oh. Shit. Dude, I think this is crazy. Alice also has an ETA for the vampires arriving in Forks, and that is in 4 days, which I feel like is pretty slow for vampires, considering Edward ran all the way to Phoenix in like 1 day, and that is super far. And Forks is super close to Seattle, so it should just be a hop, skip, and a jump. Why is it taking 4 days? And while at the party, Jacob, on the behalf of the entire werewolf community, volunteers them to help out with saving Bella from these vampires, which is like, okay, sir, do you have the authority to do that? But regardless, we get to see a vampire werewolf boot camp, which is, honestly, this is iconic because it kind of steals the nachos of the baseball scene in the first movie. And here we get to see the vampires really show their full potential when fighting the werewolves, but I'm not really focused on that. I'm more focused on Jasper and his sweet southern drawl of an accent.
I didn't have quite the same upbringing as my adopted siblings.
He brings out that country accent and he is very crazy. I was like, whoa, it really brings a nice sweet southern charm to him. But that sweet southern charm is eventually broken. It is broken because what we do find out about his past, and his backstory starts with him being a Confederate soldier. Yeah.
All the training the Confederate Army gave me.
He's a white supremacist. Aren't we all excited about that? I'm really happy for him. Stephenie Meyer, why did you write him to be like that? You could have picked any timeline and you were like, no, he's a Confederate. Not even a Union soldier? Are you joking? Are you joking? But I also have another question. How did he bag his alt baddie GF Alice. Actually, no, that low-key makes sense. We do see that conundrum all the time. Anyways, we find out that during the war, he actually went to Texas, where he then gets turned into a vampire by a woman named Maria, who then enlists him into her army, and then he becomes the second in command, and he's forced to kill all of the vampires after they've been alive as a vampire for a year. So, I mean, I guess the one thing we can take away from this is that even though he is a white supremacist, at least he's not a misogynist because he bowed down to a woman. Giving him crumbs, I guess. Moving on, Bella wakes up from her dream where she sees the future, which I'm like, okay girl, what? How did you get the superpowers to see the future? Stop stealing Alice's nachos. But anyways, the future that she sees is a future where the Ginger is actually using the vampires as her own puppets to then kill Bella. So I guess we finally figured out that Bella is the target, which I feel like everyone should have known, considering Edward found out that there was a vampire inside of Bella's home. And due to this revelation, Bella and Edward decide that they're going to hide while the rest of the vampires and werewolves fight the evil vampires. But Jacob will be the one to pick up Bella and then take her to the hiding spot, because apparently his stench is so gut-wrenching that it covers up the tuna box of Bella.
Somebody farted. Was it you?
Anyways, we then get to see Alice keying out with Mr. Swan, when all of a sudden we find out that it's actually more of a strategic key out, because Alice is actually lying to Mr. Swan, being like, hey, me and Bella are actually going to have a nice sleepover. And then we find out that it's actually going to be Bella and Edward having a sleepover. Oh. Huh. And when Bella finds out that it's actually going to be Bella and Edward having the sleepover, oh, the floodgates of Bella's lower mid-region unleash. She is so ready to go to Freaktown with this man. And while getting ready to go to Freaktown, she asks her father why he never got remarried. And he's like, well, I never got remarried because my first marriage sucked and I don't believe in marriage. And while we're at it, you shouldn't get married. And when you're young, you make dumb decisions, so don't get married, which honestly, I agree with, because when I was young, especially when I was young in high school, I was making dumb decisions left and right. Like, tell me why my top category on Spotify was musical theater. That's a mistake if I've ever seen one. So if I was listening to musical theater that much, you should not be listening to Edward that much. And then they pause mid-journey to Freak City because Edward is really in his Mormon bag due to the fact that he really wants to be married before entering the town limits of Freaktown. Like, basically this man wants to be married before he does anything freaky, which I guess makes sense because he is old as shit. But then he really shows his age when he's like, hey, back in my day, I would have courted you. And then he proposes to her for the third time in this series, but she finally says yes. But she low-key says it with like a stain of regret, so...
Yes.
Are we really happy about this marriage, guys? Because I'm not. Not looking too good. It's looking like a divorce is on its way. And then we get to see the Ginger and the evil white boy having some flirty Team Rocket vibes just before she sends him off to Forks to kill Bella. Anyways, cut to Jacob picking up Bella and then walking her over to the hiding spot, which is on the top of the mountain. And there is some weird vibes. In fact, so weird that Jacob is like, I'm actually going to stay here because I love these vibes so much. So Jacob is staying. He's going to third wheel due to the fact that he's a werewolf and can communicate telepathically with all the other werewolves. Fast forward a bit and Bella is struggling to sleep because there is a blizzard happening right outside of the tent, which I'm like, okay guys, you made this plan. Could you not have checked the weather app and seen that there was a blizzard coming and maybe at least prepared a little bit better than this? Because currently she's sleeping in a sleeping bag and that's it. Also, on top of that, why did we have to be in the mountains? Could we not have chosen a better hiding spot? Maybe go to Las Vegas or Disneyland? But due to this blizzard being so cold, someone has to warm Bella up, and it cannot be the cold-blooded killer that is Edward because, well, he's cold-blooded. Like, truly that man couldn't do shit even if he wanted. So we're gonna have to call in Jacob. So Jacob arrives and we get to see the most diabolical cuckery ever happened on the big screen. Yes, Jacob cuddles with Bella as he stares longingly into the eyes of Edward. Huh? And to top it all off, Jacob drops the line,
and let's face it, I am hotter than you.
Can we sign a petition to get this man to shut the f up? And as diabolical as this scene is, I can low-key see the crumbs that you Jacob x Edward shippers are eating, because low-key there are some gay scenes here. Because what do you mean you're going to be cuddling up on this girl but then stare directly into each other's eyes?
You're bi.
And then laugh at each other's jokes? Something's happening. You, Jacob and Edward, are gay. And after this tense scene, Jacob finds out that Bella and Edward are actually engaged, and just before he starts to wolf out, Bella decides she's gonna glaze the shit out of him. And then when that doesn't work, she decides to say, I love you. And then when that doesn't work, she kisses him. Oh my God. Bella? And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, she turns around and Edward is watching, which is like, oh my God, you just got caught red-handed. And then on top of that, she's like, don't worry, I love you more. I love you more. Girl, what are you talking about? You just cheated on him. Like, flat out, point blank period, you cheated on him.
You usually say good morning. Now you're saying good morning. Now I gotta cheat on you? Are you serious? Look at what you're doing to us. Do you see what you're doing to us? You making me cheat on you. I don't want to do this. This is what I got.
Anyways, the vampire fight begins, and the newborn vampires are fighting the old vampires and the werewolves, and the newborn vampires are being absolutely slaughtered. But that doesn't really matter, because what matters is that the ginger and the evil white boy eventually find Edward and Bella. Yeah, all that hiding really didn't do all that much, so... y'all are gonna die. In mid-fight between the three vampires, Bella decides that she's gonna cut herself to distract the three vampires, and then Edward throws the blondie away to the werewolf, where the werewolf eventually eats him, and then Gingy gets murdered by Edward. So the fight's over. And once that fight is over, Bella and Edward decide to walk down to the wolf fight, where we get to see that all the vampires basically have been slaughtered until Jacob gets caught by one of the vampires and he breaks all of the bones on his right side of his body. So I guess he's all left now. He's also naked, so there's that too. Well, after that, we get to see the Volturi do a slow-mo walk into the middle of the fight scene, and those are divas. Undeniably, those are divas. Like, we can all agree. And then the Volturi request to kill the last baby vampire, which is like a legitimate child. And then they move forward with actually killing the baby vampire, which is like, okay. But then they don't kill Bella. They're actually just like, hey, just make sure to turn her into a vampire. I'm loving that logic. Like, this girl just became a vampire. She's a child also. And you're gonna kill her, but you're not gonna kill the 17-year-old who's been wrecking havoc all over the Pacific coast. Cut to Bella checking up on Jacob, who just got all of his ribs removed, much like RuPaul did for Christmas. For Christmas is my ribs removed. If anyone hasn't checked that song out, please do. It brings so much joy to me. And while there, Jacob basically pleads for Bella to not marry Edward and become a vampire, which truly this girl has no intention of not doing. I don't think you understand. We have tried to get this girl off of Edward's weenie, and there is nothing changing that. She's basically attached to him. Like, she is fully a dreidel spinning around on that tiny weenie of his. Moving on, we find out that Alice is actually spearheading the operation that is Bella and Edward's wedding. So if this wedding doesn't have some cool Tumblr indie goth baddie vibes, oh, I'm gonna be pissed, because if it's basic, oh, someone is getting hurt. But the wedding does bring up the issue of, do they tell Bella's father? Because this man does not want her to marry anyone at her young age. On top of that, he does not want her to marry that milady-ass boyfriend of hers. So how are they going to break it to him? Because genuinely, that man does not seem like he's pro-marriage, and rightfully so. Also, on top of that, why is Edward moving forward with the wedding? Because he literally caught her red-handed cheating on him. Huh? Cheating on him with a frat boy on top of that. An alpha male frat boy. And then the movie ends. And that is the second movie in the Twilight series to end on a supposed mic drop. Anyways, I actually did really enjoy this movie. I thought it was fun and stupid in like all the best ways, in the ways that Twilight is meant to be. So that is exactly what I needed. So do not think that I'm spearheading a hate campaign against Twilight, because I think it's important that we have media for young women. Because what do you mean we tried to shame a bunch of 12-year-olds into thinking Twilight was a horrible movie? Like, it's not great, but it's certainly entertaining. Also, on top of that, I am making a podcast with my friend Elisa, and it's going to be set on the internet history of these movies. So I will be doing that maybe once every 2 weeks or once a week. If you're interested, please watch it. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, do the thing, watch my other videos. And yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks, maybe sooner, with the podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.